not surprising that historic ruins would be found near the Atlantic coast of Morocco. This, after all, is an ancient country with a culturally rich history and strategically important location. But archaeologists in the Moroccan capital of Rabat say they've recently uncovered evidence of the nation's first port district, and they believe it dates back to the 2nd century AD when the Roman Empire was flourishing. In fact, it might have been the Romans who built up the district, a public bath, and a cemetery here, but they likely weren't the first people to settle the area. Some of the artifacts reportedly have languages inscribed that predate the Romans. As researchers uncover and discover more, it's hoped the site draws more scientists and tourists to the Moroccan capital. Hi, I'm Carl Azus. Welcome to the world from A to Z. Since the war between Israel and the Hamas militant group began early last month, one question that's been swirling is whether Hezbollah would get fully involved. This is another Islamist militant group that's also widely considered a terrorist group. It's based in Lebanon, which borders Israel to the north, and it's supported by Iran, a sworn enemy of Israel. Late last week, Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah gave his first speech since the war started. He praised Hamas for its October 7th terrorist attack against Israel, though he said Hezbollah was not involved in it. He said Hezbollah had been involved since then, as it's fired rockets into Israel regularly over the past few weeks, and Israel has responded with airstrikes of its own against militant targets in Lebanon. What Nasrallah didn't say was that Hezbollah would get fully engaged in the war. And that's something being watched very closely as Israel continues to pursue Hamas targets in Gaza. Will the Middle Eastern country have to fight on a second front against Hezbollah? The U.S., an ally of Israel, has moved warships into the region to discourage Hezbollah and Iran from getting more involved.
Daily since the 8th of October, Hezbollah and Israel have been exchanging fire across the border. It's not a full-blown war yet. Hezbollah's leader has been unusually quiet since the war broke out in Gaza, but his allies in Iran have made it clear if Israel crosses red lines in its operations against Hamas, new fronts could open. And what are those red lines?
You know, these red lines for Hezbollah, Hamas, the Hamas leadership, Hamas remaining intact as an organization, and of course the Palestinian people themselves, Hezbollah's red lines. They're also Iran's red lines, they're Hamas and Islamic Jihad's red lines, they're everyone's red lines.
As the fighting in Gaza intensifies and the civilian death toll soars, the prospect of regional war looms. And that could spell disaster for Lebanon, a country already in a state of economic collapse and political paralysis.
It's not something that the country it would take it ages to recover from.
On Beirut's Corniche, 70-year-old retired bank employee Bassem waits for the fish to bite. Nobody knows what's going to happen, he tells me. Everyone is worried. The situation is not reassuring. The sea appears calm, but a storm may be coming. Ben Wiedemann, CNN, Beirut.
On this date in world history. November 6, 1860, Abraham Lincoln defeated 3 other candidates to become the 16th President of the United States. He dominated the vote in the North and in California and Oregon, but Lincoln won almost no votes in southern states, and by the time he was sworn in, 7 of them had left the Union and the stage was set for the Civil War. In 1869, the first intercollegiate football game was played in New Jersey. Yeah, I play in a tie. Students from Rutgers and Princeton, which was then called the College of New Jersey, played with a soccer-like ball and 25 players per side. Roughly 100 fans are reported to have watched Rutgers win 6-4. And in 1962, the United Nations General Assembly called on its members to cut off their economic and military ties with South Africa. The move was meant to pressure the country to end apartheid, racial discrimination against black South Africans that was supported by the government, but apartheid laws remained in the country until the early 1990s.
Word of knowledge. Which of these animals has the longest lifespan? Anteater, cockatoo, boa constrictor, gecko. In captivity, cockatoos can live between 40 and 60 years, giving them the longest lifespan on this list.
There's a sort of turf war that's been taking place between cockatoos and residents of a town in southeastern Australia. It's not over land, it's over garbage. The birds have gotten a taste for scraps of people's food, and some have learned to break into garbage cans to get a snack.
In the idyllic coastal town of Stanwell Park, south of Sydney, bustling cafes are serving lunch. But as weekend crowds queue for their coffees, a hungry horde of onlookers eagerly wait in the wings.
They keep us company. They seem to be pretty chill, you know. Just got to make sure that we don't leave like food scraps out and that. Like come and get the scraps as quickly as possible and get them up in the kitchen, you know. Otherwise they sort of just come down and you know, have a bit of a frenzy.
If you're the one who has to interrupt their meal though, these Australian white cockatoos can get a bit testy.
Loud, very persistent, aggressive definitely.
When waitstaff can clear up the crumbs, the birds have worked out how to get a second helping, by dumpster diving. Scientists say the ability to flip the lids has spread to onlookers, and as humans stepped up the defence of their refuse, new research suggests it sparked an interspecies innovation arms race.
When we first started looking at this behavior, we were already amazed because actually the cockatoos learned how to open the bins. But then looking at how this progressed and the people then protecting the bins, and I was like really astonished by like how many different methods people have invented. It's like really amazing.
Just to stop the cockatoos from getting in the bin.
Yeah, and how hard? Like, why did you go to that? What were you doing before?
Just down here. They had that rock on there.
And they moved that somehow, did they?
Somehow they moved it. I don't know how. It must have taken 5 or 6 of them, but yeah, they definitely moved it.
Who will win this race?
I think that's really hard. I think ultimately it will be the humans.
Even if researchers are tipping the humans, locals aren't cocky enough to underestimate their feathered competitors.
They're getting more intelligent. They're evolving. Yeah, like if you go back like 5-10 years ago, they didn't know how to open bins, so they're figuring stuff out.
As I've said before, one thing a lot of us news anchors are really good at is mispronouncing names. Here's one. We want to recognize Mr. Schreiber's class today, or is it Mr. Schreiber's class at Berkshire Middle School? Hello to Galena, Ohio. Next, we've got the students of Mrs. Walker and Mr. Falls online today. Great to have y'all watching from Mission Trail Middle School. It's in Olathe, Kansas.
The folks at SeaWorld San Diego were blessed with a rare encounter, the first birth of an emperor penguin chick in 13 years. Hatched on September 12th, the park says the chick is gaining weight steadily on a diet of fish and fish milkshakes. They're also asking the public for help in naming this little cutie. Emperor penguins are currently listed as a threatened species, and SeaWorld San Diego says they are the only zoo in the Western Hemisphere where the species can be found.
Fish milkshakes. If you don't think seafood's in the swim with dessert, you should dive into some brownie trout, angelfish food cake, or carpal pie. Of course, there's always kingfish cake, ladyfinger fish, and pumpkin seed pie. And who wouldn't want a piece of flounder cake or tuna miso a la mode with icefish cream? Top it off with some cool whiptail and a cold salmonade, and you've got something that tips the scales of delicious. I'm Carl Azus, no longer looking forward to lunch, but I am looking forward to seeing you tomorrow on The World from A to Z. Thanks for watching. You mean the world to me.